I should be arrested. The popo should be coming for me right now. I'm literally the worst hermit. I was just looking at my shops, and I have not stocked them. They have been completely out of stock, and I don't know for how long. My hair blending in too much with this cobblestone. Is that distracting for you? This makes it look like I'm wearing a very large hat. As you can see from my levels, I've been at my gold farm for a little while, and I've also spent the night at the iron farm, so oh gosh. Is this a small enough problem that it can be a future me problem? Yes, okay, this is excellent. Inventory management is my passion. Down we go into the mines. That should do the trick for a little while. It's not much, but it's something. And the reason it's not much is because I was actually targeting leather from bartering trades. Now, not only does this mean I can restock my item frame shop, but it also means I should be able to do a little bit more armor stand action. We do not actually have a huge amount though. We just got tons of other stuff. I won't complain about getting loads of quartz and gravel and things, but I kind of wanted more leather. With that being said, 3 shulker boxes worth of gravel for coarse dirt is extremely cool. Nice, nice, nice. Hermits, remember, please don't buy this stuff. It's time to get to work on my Bulbous creation. That is what I'm referring to this thing as, the Bulbous creation. I think it is pretty fitting, and I gotta say, now that I'm back here, it's been a couple days since I was last over here. I've spent the past week on some Scottish winter mountains and being horrifically ill, just horrendously ill. Coming back after some time away, it still looks cool. It looks in proportion with the town. I think it fits in with all the surroundings and things. I like it a lot. I'm excited to start getting the modules in. So first things first, we need to get a little bit of inspiration. And to do that, I looked up a bunch of film stills featuring retro technology or old machinery or sort of older science fiction stuff. And there's lots of little gauges and dials and displays that I really, really like in this selection. So I'm going to be trying my best to draw from this. So without further ado, let's get the ball rolling. I'm going to ease myself into this with this bottom one, which I would say looks quite structural. Initially, I was going to build it out of tuff, but actually, I think deep slate is probably the way to go. I really like the way the bottom of the factory looks. Do I actually have any deep slate? I don't know if I do, you know. No. Okay, that's very typical. I guess this is my life for the next little while. Oh, that's a nice bonus of the job. Right, so I've started placing in some blocks, and I've started placing in some basic pipes and things, and I think this is a solid start. It's only a tiny little module. It looks like something that is kind of holding up the rest of the machine, so this small amount of detail I think is more than enough. I think the one thing that I might add is just an extra pipe on this side, just to make sure that the build isn't completely two-dimensional at this point in time, and I would say that has gone fairly smoothly. Right, let's move on to module number 2. Except first, I really need to whack some of this copper. Oh my goodness, how have I not noticed that Willie's is fully oxidized? This is terrible. Gosh, that looks so much better, and that looks infinitely better. I'm really not sure I like that orange and red together. I'm going to decide later on if I can tolerate it. Now we move on to this module, and I kind of like the idea that this is like a corner screen type thing. Okay, this is interesting. Now we need to work out how to do the stuff in this gap. And honestly, I don't really know. We don't have too much space to work with. I want to get the impression across that there is some form of information being displayed. I'm playing around with this idea, which of course we could animate with redstone. I think it looks pretty good. I think once it's covered with some form of glass, it will help. It looks a little bit too high contrast right now. Definitely. Okay, let's get something on there. Originally I was thinking green, but I actually think I'm going to try and imagine hues here. Not only are we going to try and do a sort of general dark to light gradient on this build, but also I think go from sort of cyany, shadowy colors to then the more pastel-y colours towards the top, with the saturation peaking towards the middle. As you can tell, I feel incredibly confident about this plan. This is feeling like it looks incredibly cool. Yes, I was right. Okay, that fits right in. For the time being, I am just going to toggle some of these on. Eventually, they will get redstoned up, and that marks this part of the build all done and dusted. So let's move on to the next one. In fact, let's move on to a few more, and I think I'm going to do it in the form of a time lapse. And progress is going remarkably well. I managed to speed through this section, and I think it's because this is probably the easiest section of the build. You see, if I imagine this build segmented into 3 different areas, I would say the bottom section is the area dedicated to power. So this is where a lot of the power for the build is coming from. You know, you've got like electrical signals running into the base of the build. We've got vents. We've got pistons and things moving. This is where the actual energy for the build is kind of coming in, and then I would say the middle section is where a lot of the computing elements are going to be, so that's going to be a little bit more complicated, and I think some of those modules are going to have to be a little bit more detailed, but that's where almost the brain of the operation is. And of course we've got the screen in the center, which literally is the brain of the operation. And then the final segment is going to be dedicated to, I guess, networking. So there'll be sorts of antennas and little satellite dishes and things like that. So let's take a look at what we've done. And I gotta say, I think it's really interesting how well this actually fits in with the town. It almost feels like an extension of the town going upwards, which wasn't initially my plan, but I'm kind of on board with it. I was really worried when I started building this thing that it would mess up the proportions of what we already had, but actually breaking up this mega build into a bunch of smaller builds has kept the feeling of correct scale for this area while simultaneously adding like a big focal point up at the top. I think this is working quite well, and I've done it by accident. Now, I really don't know what to do next. You see, here's the thing. I am super excited to build the rest of the modules. So I'm in a very module building mood. And these modules are starting to be the most exciting ones because these are more of the computery ones. I want to get like all the switches and all the different like electronic looking bits added in. But simultaneously, I'm kind of thinking that I want to do a little bit of redstone and actually try and work out how I'm going to do the brain of this thing. So yeah, I think I'm going to pop into the redstone testing well quickly. Gosh, the factory looks cool from up here, doesn't it? I'm going to give myself a few hours and then we'll get back to building. But I guess there are some major aesthetic considerations to make here. Like, what do I actually want the display to look like? Do I want it to be a face? Do I want it to have letters and numbers, purely information being displayed? I was watching back this Big Ron's promo and I do absolutely love the little Grumbot inspired robot screen. I kind of feel like this might be the way to go. It's time to do a little bit of experimenting. I've spent the best part of an hour working on the front of this thing. It dawned on me how important it is that I actually get the look of this thing correct, and I think this is a solid start. Now, if I just do some mock powerings of a lot of the lights and things, these are the lights that will be on all the time, and I've just realized this kind of gives it a vibe as if it's looking down. I'm not sure if that's good or bad. It's kind of got those eyeballs that sort of follow you wherever you walk. All right, I'm playing with some ideas here. I had not initially imagined this, but these are sort of looking like pupils, and I think we can animate the pupils in a way that is really satisfying, and it will give this thing a ton of life. I guess this would be the sort of default state, and then we could have it look down, we could have it look from side to side, we could make it do eye rolls, we could make it go cross-eyed, we could make it do all sorts of different things randomly at different intervals. He could blink, he could do some crazy ones, like his eyes could roll over the top and then come back to the start. That could be creepy, I don't know. You can tell how long I've been staring at this by the fact that a bunch of the bulbs are now starting to weather. I really should start making decisions here. Okay, here is the plan of action. I'm just going to see if I can do it, and then we'll see how it feels. Like, that's probably the best way to go, right? I'll see if I can actually make these eyeballs do interesting eyeball things, and if I can, then we decide if we actually want it in the base. So the first thing that I have to do is make sure that I can actually power all of these various different bulb positions, and I should be able to use the blocks next to the bulbs to be able to toggle them on and off. Now, I'm extremely curious if I can actually make these all fully independent of one another. It could be quite difficult. Oh, and I've just realized I probably want all of these to toggle on and then off again. So on the rising edge, the lamps toggle on, and then on the falling edge, they toggle off. So that means we need 2 pulses per pulse, which I think I could just do using regular pistons, and that should do the trick. Oh my goodness, this is potentially going to be a little bit more complicated than I was expecting. I'm going to try my best to plan out all of the different eye positions. So side to side, up, I'd like cross-eyed. I guess blink would be good. And having written out that list, I've split up the segments of the eye into various different chunks, and we have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different segments that we can power or depower. Well, actually make that 11 because I need these two to be separate. And I also need to be able to make sure that these two eyes can go directly next to one another. This is gonna be difficult. So I'm thinking having the eyeballs do random things, like having a random sequence of events with animations, is just gonna prove to be way too difficult. So instead, I'm going to have a sequence that the eyes run in, and I'm going to store that sequence using piston feed tapes. So the first task is to create a decoder, and I think this should be the final stage of that process. This means that every single one of these comparators corresponds to a different segment of our eye displays, and they are all on a different Y level. So let's just quickly make sure that this is working. If I flick this lever, is it really only doing one light bulb? Have I gone that granular with it? As far as I know, this should switch on the light bulb next to it. Yeah, okay, it does. And then we should have this one here and this one here should be the other light bulbs around it. Okay, yeah. And then when I flick all of those off, all of those should switch off again. Nice. I've tested all of the different segments and all of them seem to be working, which is fantastic. Now, if you're wondering why they're all on different Y levels, it's because our piston feed tape... Oh, how do I explain this? Our piston feed tape is like a strip of glass and blocks. If there is glass, then the bulbs are off. If there are blocks, then the bulbs are on. Each layer of our piston feed tape corresponds to a different segment of the eyes. For example, this top layer here corresponds to the top section of the eyeball, this bottom one corresponds to the bottom one, and then all the ones in between do all the ones in between. Now, our piston feed tape will be made of a bunch of these slices that cycle around in a circle. And you have to think of each one of these slices as being like a frame of the animation. So as each slice moves along, we get a different assortment of glass and blocks, which means we get a different assortment of bulbs being on or off, which hopefully should lead to some satisfying animations. I don't know if I'm being overconfident, but I genuinely feel like that made sense. So now we should be on the home straight and in plain sailing territory. However, I have no clue how I'm going to power these pistons here without disrupting all of this. Remember, I know you probably think I could put some redstone here, but no. We need another one of these on this side, directly next to this machine, which I've just realized isn't actually going to work because this block here would also power these pistons. So this needs to be dropped down. Hopefully this doesn't break anything major. Okay, that's all fixed. I've also done some extra jiggling around of the redstone, and as far as I can tell, I should now be able to run a redstone line up here without it connecting to anything. Yeah, that doesn't look like it will cause any issues. And there's only one issue on this side, which I think should now all be resolved. So then this here is going to be the size of our piston feed tape, and this is how many frames we're going to have for our animation cycle. So we've got 12, 15. Okay, so this is a 30 frame animation. Now I'm also going to add an extra section to our piston feed tape, which is going to contain a single block. And this is so we can tell what state it's in, because I want to have a default off state. So if we switch the machine off, it will go to the default state, which will be the pupils in the center, just so it doesn't get stuck somewhere weird. So that's all in place, and all of the circuitry connecting up our banks of pistons should be in place. And now, as you can see, our piston feed tape is working. So this block is gradually making its way around. Now it's time for the fairly dull and fairly painful task of programming in all of the animations. This just involves repeatedly placing blocks inside of here in the correct place and hoping it does what I expect it to. And I thought this would work well in the form of a time lapse. And here you can see the absolute trial and errorness that is this part of the process. Just gradually placing in blocks, seeing which part of the eye lights up, working out animations, working out sequences, and generally just forgetting what part of the sequence that you should be in. Yeah, there's nothing worse than when you skip along and then you forget what the eyes were meant to be doing. But after a lot of playing about, I have got a working sequence. Now, is it the sequence that I'm going to stick with? Probably not. But as a proof of concept, it's working incredibly well. So let's take a closer look. Here we go. Here it is. I'm very much enjoying just sitting here watching this thing. Like, there's something incredibly satisfying about it. So it's currently looping through. It's going to look down again. And then we should get a little bit of side-to-side action as well. I don't know. It feels like it has a lot of life. I feel like this has worked out quite nicely. And I think from a distance as well, especially, there's something about this that is just fun. It's just really, really fun. There is one that I really don't like, which is the blink. Here it is. Dreadful. It's like demonic. I don't like that at all. But all of the eye movement stuff, I think, is perfect. I did not have this planned, by the way. I did not have this planned for today. I didn't have any idea of doing even a face, and then it was just by chance that I ended up with some pupil-looking things. But I think this is really cool. So I think in terms of eye animations, I'm definitely going to have the look down, look side to side. I'm going to add in the cross-eyed animation. I'm also going to then have the looking up. And then I think having some form of silly one, like a full eye roll, would be kind of fun, even though it could look horrific. I'm not sure. So with all the logic worked out, let's pop back onto the Hermitcraft server. I really, really like this thing. This strand, this little rope that Scar has created here, has perfect shape. It's so well executed. By the way, I'm almost 99.9% certain that Scar has added an audacious number of big trees. Like, I swear this forest has tripled in size. But I've been spending the past few days working on this area and looking over occasionally at this piece of rope here, and I've been thinking, bosh. Bosh. Like, how cool would it look if this build was almost tied down? It's like being held together by rope. Would I be able to create such a perfect piece of engineering? I don't know. I honestly don't know, but I'm going to give it a whirl. Now, I'm not entirely sure why, but I just have mangrove in mind for this, and I'm going to get things started over here. How does one do this? How would it work? I guess so it starts from a point of sort of slack-ish. This definitely feels like one of those times where having some form of camera account online would be incredibly useful. I feel like I'm missing the mark already. Scar has added dangly bits, and I think that has actually done a lot to hide the shape. I'm getting close. Oh no, this is so bad. What has happened to me? I've created, like, how did I not notice that was happening? How did I not notice that? This is potentially the worst thing I've ever constructed in my entire life. I don't even know what to say. And it's so annoying to remove. This is something that I think we have done too early. I think this is a cool idea that currently doesn't fit in with the completion level of the build. I've gone ahead of myself. I've got a little bit too excited. I think I've placed something in, it's like a final detail, when in reality, I should be working on some of these modules here. It is time for the copper module. I don't know why, I just always envisioned the one underneath the head being made of copper. With that being said, with this current color scheme, this guy's pretty bluey, right? Like, if I add another blue module underneath, that might be too much of one color. And weirdly enough, just as I was thinking about colors, Gem came over with a question.
What's your favorite color? Don't panic. It's...
Oh my goodness. No, I'm panicking now. I can't even think of a color. I literally can't even think of a color.
I can't think of a color. Mumbo!
No, it's just like, probably like, cerulean blue.
Blue?
No, cerulean blue. Cerulean's very important.
Yeah, okay, it's very specific.
Blue. Yeah.
All right.
Is that all you need to know?
Yeah, well, the research, I'm asking everybody, and so far 3 of you have all said blue.
A form of blue. Look, Gem, we need to be very clear here. Cerulean blue is very different
Cerulean
from blue.
Right. I know, yeah. I got it.
Because if we're just going for primary colors, then it's going to be something different. But
wait, okay, say a primary color.
Oh my goodness. Well, I guess look, if we're not talking like primary colors, because then there's only 3 of them, and that's a small number. But if we're talking like just no,
you can go into the
extra
secondary
word.
colors as well.
Oh my goodness, I got a lot of options now. I do like green
You've got
at the
like
minute.
6 options. Green?
Yeah.
Green?
I'm kind of
All right.
liking green, but look, this is the problem. My brain is just because I'm surrounded by like my view is pure green at the minute. I feel like if I was
Yeah.
facing any other direction, I'd probably say something different.
Well, that's sort of the research that I'm conducting, right? Because I tried to guess based on looking at the hermit's base, and for you, I guessed red.
And now my brain is completely frazzled, and I don't even know what color I like anymore. I think red, and then this will be white with blue in the middle. Reddish tones here. Then this will be some kind of birchy color. I reckon this will be orangey. This will be something else, and then this will be some other thing. Oh, and these pipes running down the front, I think these should be copper. So it'll be red with a little bit of copper, white, and then blue copperiness in here. Okay. I have got that in, and it looks very weird in contrast with this. Don't get me wrong, but I do think this will work out once we get this screen in place. Oh, I've just had a completely ridiculous idea, but I kind of like the idea of it. I wonder if I create almost a heart shape down here. Like, how would that look? Oh my goodness. That's a ridiculous heart. Okay. Is it too much? I honestly don't know now. Oh, I just don't know. Oh, I do kind of like it. I think with some extra details and bits and pieces kind of covering up a lot of the border and things, and then getting the copper pipes in, and then getting the background in, I think this will actually work. And if I still conclude that I don't like it by the next Hermitcraft episode, we can always remove it and change it out for something else. I'm playing around with ideas for what goes behind the heart, and I kind of imagined honey. Because honey kind of looks like oil being pumped around, and then, yeah, almost a system a bit like this. So they'd be stacked up like that, would have walls on each side like this, and then lines of honey almost snaking around. Does that look cool? I kind of feel like it looks cool, but I don't know. I think it is safe to say I'm absolutely flying by the seat of my pants at this point in time. I am just placing blocks and freestyling and seeing what happens. Goodness me, Skiz is having a rough time. Okay. I'm feeling pretty happy about where this is as like a base standard. I'm not sure how I feel about the tough. I kind of want a different type of block, but then there's not really that many wall variants in the game, and definitely not that many that would look good with red. So I think the issue that I'm having is this thing is surrounded by tough. Once all of the tough is removed, then it will look less tough-y. Now, it has crossed my mind that I could absolutely animate this heart, and there is potential for me doing that, but I think for the time being, I just need to add some details to this build, because right now, it is looking very flat and very bland. So I need to add some bits and pieces, a bit like what I've got going on in the factory, just stuff. I've almost completely lost track of how many copper blocks I've bought, but I definitely think I'm owed another statue now. How many was it? How many is it for the extra one? Copper Golem, 5 purchases. Exposed, 15. I mean, maybe? Goodness gracious me. These pipes cost me 18 diamonds. Is it worth it? Yeah, I mean, they look cool as. Like, that's definitely worth it. My only criticism at this point in time is that it looks kind of dark back there, so I wonder if I could place a few light blocks behind our honey blocks. All right, let's think. If we place one back here, I mean, I don't even know. Will it even shine through? I genuinely don't know. It does seem to be. That looks significantly better, although my honey blocks keep disappearing and reappearing. I'm gradually adding in more and more details. I've been adding some more wiring. I'm just trying to get some texture into this build, and I think I'm almost done. I've got a few extra bits of wiring to add in. I just need a few extra grindstones. And I'm feeling pretty happy about how this looks. And feeling pretty happy in general about all of the extra bits and pieces I've added. I think the one thing that I would like is a little bit more texture on these pipes here. And to be honest, when in doubt, just add some trapdoors. I think some copper trapdoors on these will look great. Okay, fine. Right now, they look terrible. But eventually, when they oxidize, they'll look great. Okay. We have got there. I am really, really happy with everything that we've done in this area. It has taken me a very long time. It has taken a lot of brain power, and frankly, I'm a little bit frazzled. So it's time for me to spend the night with a ton of piglins. That was grumbly, smelly, and generally unpleasant. But I do now have 403 levels. I don't know if I've ever had this many levels before. Oh my goodness. I almost immediately lost them. I was just about to jump off the edge and I remembered I'd taken off all my stuff. I am incredibly curious how much I managed. What? What? That seems so low. That doesn't make any sense. All these chests seem to be full. Did I accidentally leave on the bartering section? No, I didn't leave on the bartering section. Genuinely might need to increase the price of gold because I'm too stupid to keep it stocked.